Hello, it's Saturday the 5th of March 2022 and just popped on to say I told my youngest two today about the cancer. As I said, my eldest, who is 16, already knows. Seems absolutely fine with it. My youngest two, I was umming and ahhing, debating how I was going to tell them, because I haven't really met anyone who has had children. Well, I don't know many people that have had cancer. The only people I know that have had different cancer and are much older. Or I know a couple now that I've spoken to since my diagnosis who've told their children, or who haven't told their children because they're too young. And my two youngest are 9 and 10. So a lot of the books and things, I think I've already said this, a lot of the books and things are very much targeted at younger children. So it was a bit not really knowing which way to do it. But I made the decision to do it today. I was going to leave it until a bit later on in the week, just before we told them that they were getting a week off school. Well, although they'll still be doing the dreaded homeschooling, but before we go into isolation before the op. But I decided to do it now just because everyone knows, and the thing that I didn't want to happen is I didn't want them hearing from anyone else and then being worried or whatever it is. So I wanted to be the one that told them and sit them down and make sure they understood what was going on and everything else. So we got them both in, me and my husband got them both in and got them to put their gadgets down, which is a miracle in itself. And I basically just started by asking them if they had heard of cancer. And my youngest 9-year-old, he did not. He had never heard of it. He didn't know what it was. My middle one, who's 10, nearly 11 actually, he said yes, he had. So I asked him what he knew about it, what he'd heard about it, because I wanted to establish what that was before I went on. And he already looked worried at this point, and he said that people get very poorly and lots of people die. And at that point I was really, really glad that I started with that question, because it then gave me the opportunity to say that yes, a lot of people do get very poorly, and a lot of people do die, but likewise a lot of people have it and they can get rid of it and it can be treated, and they go on to have long lives and live for a long time afterwards. So I really, really drummed that into him. And then so I still hadn't actually told them at this point, so I then went on, because they are that little bit older. I wanted them to understand, and the reason why I'm telling you all this pretty much word for word is just because it might, if there's anyone that watches this that has got children of a similar age, it might give you an idea. It might not work for your children, but it might give you a similar idea. So I then went to tell them again, before I'd actually said anything about me having it. I wanted them to explain, I wanted them to understand a little bit more about cancer itself, and in complete, very simplified layman's terms. And like I say, anything that I'm about to say, this is not like supposed to be like scientifically accurate or anything like this. It's just a very easy to understand, broad way of looking at it that they could understand. So please don't take what I'm about to say for gospel and think, Faye said this is how cancer works, because I really don't know that much about it. So I said, the human body is made up of lots and lots of cells. Everything's made up of cells, but we as people, as humans, are made up of cells. And there's cells that make our face, there's cells that make our hands, there's cells that make our heart, there's cells that make absolutely everything inside of us. And how we grow and how our bodies keep on going and moving and adapting and all this is these cells keep growing, and they keep growing, they keep replacing each other, and we keep making new cells. Now, sometimes, sorry if I'm speaking like I'm speaking to a child, now sometimes when these cells make new cells, there's a little difference and it doesn't quite make it work right. Just like if you try and build this big thing out of Lego, but after the first go you lose the instructions, and you can pretty much remember where everything goes, but then every now and then you might put a block in the wrong place and it changes it slightly. So that's the same thing with some of the cells in the body. Sometimes they just are made slightly different, and sometimes that causes problems, and this is how cancer's made. It's when these cells are made slightly different and there's a slight problem with them. Now, these cells then sort of like form, and they can go to different parts of the body depending on where they are made. And then I turned around and I said, so Mummy has got some of these cells, and Mummy's cells are in her boobies, or just one of the boobies. It's in my left boob. And I was very aware of what their faces were doing at this point. Fenton looked much more concerned than what Jacob did. Jacob just looked bored, in fairness. And I said, so Mummy's got cancer in her boobie, and the doctors are quite happy that we're going to be able to get it out, and that I'm going to be okay, and that is the plan. But we need to get it out, and Mummy's going to go and have an operation for that, but it's not an operation where I'll be away, or an operation that I'll need to stay in hospital for a long time. In fact, you probably won't even notice me gone much at all, because I'm going to drop you off at school, I'm going to go, I'm going to have it taken out, have the cancer taken away, and then we are going to come home a bit later that night time, and Nanny and Gramps are going to look after you. So that was the way I played it. And I then asked them if they had any questions, and Fenton said, is it big? Can I see it? And I said, no, you can't see it. I said, but you can feel it. Mummy can show you where it is if you want. And he was quite up for that. And Jay just was sort of like very concerned that it was going to hurt me, and I reassured them both then that at the moment it doesn't hurt, it's nothing like that, we can still have lots of cuddles and everything. And then I said, after I've had the operation, then maybe you will need to be a bit more gentle with Mummy for a little bit, just until she gets better, just like if you cut yourself and it needs a little bit of time to heal, so it'll be like that. So I'll be a little bit sore, and you'll be have to be a bit more gentle with Mummy until I'm all healed. And then after the operation, after the doctors have looked and made sure that everything's okay, then we'll decide on what happens after that. But we don't need to think about that at this point. It's just about the operation at this point, and up to that point. And then I thought, I'm going to try and milk this a little bit, and I said, so Mummy and Daddy are going to need you to be very good and tidy all your things away, and make sure you're doing things when we ask you to do them, just to make it easier on Mummy and Daddy. Will you do that? And they were like, yes, yes, yes. And then asked them again if they had any questions, and they didn't. But I then thought, as an afterthought, to say to them, if you've ever got any questions, then you ask me. And I said, do not go and look it up and see if you can find out some information on your own, or find out more on your own. I said, don't do that. I said, always come to me, because I'm very different to anyone else, so looking it up won't give you those answers, so you need to come to me. And they both promised me that they'd do that. And I said, and if you don't want to talk to me, then you can talk to Daddy or Nanny. The teachers know at school, so you can talk to them if you want to. There's lots of people you can talk to if you feel that way. So that's how it was. 2 seconds. Sorry, I thought my hubby was calling me. So yeah, that's how it was. So I just wanted to get that in, because God, Google is scary enough for an adult, let alone for a child. So I wanted to get it into their heads and make sure that that wasn't going to happen. Obviously there's always possibility, but hopefully they will come to me. So they actually left in the conversation, and they seemed to be quite happy about everything, and they didn't seem to be overly concerned, which is what the intent was. So that was all good. And then the really cute thing, my youngest one, bless him, he's so sensitive to other people, and he's really compassionate, and he really takes on board. He's really empathic as well, and I didn't even think anything of it. I thought they'd just gone and played, and about an hour later I took some clothes up or something to his room, and he'd been up, he'd tidied all his room, he'd made his own bed, like put everything nice and neatly, and oh, my heart just melted. Hasn't happened, probably won't happen again since. And my other one didn't do anything, but it was a good start, and yeah, bless them, they're just so lovely. But it went well, and that was I wasn't sure, like I say, how I was going to do it. I didn't sort of like plan it too much in my head. I just went with what felt the right thing to say at the time, and hopefully it's okay. Obviously we'll cross the next bridge when we come to it, but I didn't want to overdose them on information. I just wanted to give them what they need to know when they need to know it, and at this point it's just this build up until the operation, and then I'll talk to them obviously again after the operation, just reiterate about, well, depending on what I'm like really, if like what my recovery is like, hopefully with just a lumpectomy and node biopsy, hopefully it'll be relatively simple, and then yeah, and then it's the results, and we'll deal with that, whatever that is, when we get to it. Other than that, that is it. So I just wanted to share that with you, and yes, we will see what happens, but I'm gonna go now. All right, for now, I will see you all later. You take care. Mwah.